My name is Cole Archer, and at 38, I've built a life I thought was pretty solid. I'm a software consultant, the kind of guy who works from home in sweatpants and still pulls in enough money to keep everyone around me happy. My wife, Lillian, her mother, Vivian, and even her lazy cousin Ezra. They all depend on me, and I've never minded too much. I mean, I married into this loud, messy Southern family 8 years ago, and I figured that's just how it works. They're a little wild, always talking over each other, laughing too loud, and planning things I'd never dream up on my own. I used to call it eccentric, charming even. But lately, I'm starting to see it's more than that. They don't just lean on me, they expect me to carry them. And I'm not sure how I feel about it anymore. Take this Bermuda trip, for instance. Lillian came to me a couple of months back, her eyes all bright, saying, "Cool, let's take the family somewhere amazing, like Bermuda." I could have said no. I could have pointed out that we just paid off her car or that Vivian's roof repair wasn't cheap. But I didn't. I said yes because I always say yes, and before I knew it, I was the one booking everything. Flights, a fancy villa with ocean views, even a boat tour for the whole crew. It wasn't just me and Lillian either. She wanted her mom, Ezra, and a few others tagged along too. I didn't blink at the cost. I just swiped my card and figured it'd be worth it to see her smile. She's got this way of making me feel like I'm the hero when I give her what she wants. And I've always liked that feeling. So I planned it all. Double-checked the reservations and sent everyone the details. I pictured us on that boat, the sun warm on my face, maybe a cold beer in my hand, while Lillian laughed beside me. It sounded perfect. But then something started gnawing at me. It wasn't anything big at first, just a quiet little itch in the back of my mind. Maybe it was the way Lillian kept adding people to the trip without asking me, or how Vivian called me the bank one too many times with that smirk of hers. I'd laugh it off, but it stuck with me. I'd sit there in my home office staring at code on my screen and wonder why I was the only one putting anything into this. Lillian would breathe in, kiss my cheek and say, "You're the best, Cole." And I'd let it go. She's beautiful, you know? Dark hair, green eyes, the kind of smile that makes you forget what you were mad about. That's how it's always been with us. I met her at a friend's barbecue, and she had me hooked in 10 minutes flat. I didn't care that her family came with her. They were part of the deal, and I told myself I could handle it. Back then, I thought they liked me. Vivian would call me son. Ezra would bum a beer and clap me on the back, and I felt like I belonged. But now with this trip coming up, I'm not so sure. It's like I'm not even part of the plan, just the guy who makes it happen. I'd hear them on the phone, Lillian and her mom, giggling about something, and when I'd ask, they'd wave me off. "Oh, it's nothing, Cole," Lillian would say, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I started paying attention after that, like when Ezra dropped by unannounced last week, sprawled on my couch and said, "Man, this Bermuda thing is going to be epic. Thanks for footing the bill." He grinned like it was a joke, but it didn't feel funny. I nodded, kept my mouth shut, and went back to my laptop. I didn't want to start a fight. Not yet. I told myself I was overthinking it. Families are messy, right? They bicker, they push, they take. But they're still family. I've never had a big one of my own. Just a quiet dad who passed when I was 20, and a mom who lives across the country now. Lillian's clan filled that gap for me, and I didn't mind the noise. At least I didn't used to. But as the trip got closer, that it's turned into something heavier. I'd catch Vivian whispering to Lillian in the kitchen, their voices dropping when I walked in. One night, I overheard Ezra on the phone saying, "Yeah, Cole's got it covered. He always does." always does. Those words stuck in my chest like a splinter. I sat there after he left, staring at the Bermuda itinerary on my screen, flight times, villa check-in, the boat tour schedule, and wondered why I wasn't more excited. I should have been. I'd worked hard for this. My job's good, steady, the kind of gig that lets me afford nice things without breaking a sweat. I'm not flashy about it, though. I drive a used truck or the same sneakers until they fall apart. The money's for them. Lillian, Vivian, Ezra, for the life I thought we were building together. But sitting there alone in my office with the house quiet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Not just off wrong, like I'd missed a step somewhere and was about to trip. I didn't know what it was yet, but it was there simmering under the surface, waiting for me to figure it out. 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave, it hit me full force. Vivian called me over for dinner, and I walked into something I never saw coming. But that's another story when I'll get to soon enough. For now, I'm just Cole Archer, the guy who thought he had it all under control, staring at a trip I paid for and wondering why it didn't feel like mine anymore. 2 weeks before we were supposed to fly out to Bermuda, I got a call from Vivian, my mother-in-law, inviting me over for dinner at her place. She's got this big, creaky house about 20 minutes from ours, all wood floors and faded wallpaper. The kind of place that smells like fried chicken and mothballs no matter what's cooking. I didn't think much of it. Vivian loves her family dinners, and I've been dragged to plenty of them over the years. Lillian said she'd meet me there, so I threw on a clean shirt, grabbed my keys, and drove over, figuring it'd be the usual chaos. Loud stories, too much food, and Vivian bossing everyone around. I wasn't wrong about the chaos, but I had no idea what I was walking into. When I pulled up, the driveway was packed. Lillian's car, her Aunt Ruth's old sedan, even a couple of vehicles I didn't recognize. I stepped inside and the air hit me thick with wine and chatter. Vivian was at the head of the dining table, her gray hair pulled back tight, waving a glass like she was toasting the room. Lillian sat next to her, picking at a plate of cornbread, her green eyes flicking up to me for half a second before dropping again. Ruth was there too, her loud laugh cutting through the noise. And 2 of Lillian's friends, Carrie and Beth, I think, were giggling over something on their phones. Ezra wasn't around, which was odd. But I didn't dwell on it. I slid into the empty chair next to Lillian, gave her a quick kiss on the cheek and said, "Hey, looks like a party." She smiled, but it was tight, like she was holding something back. I should have noticed that right away. But I was too busy grabbing a roll and nodding at Vivian's latest rant about her neighbor's dog. The wine kept flowing, and I stuck to water. I've never been big on drinking, especially not around this crowd. Everything felt normal enough until Vivian set her glass down hard, cleared her throat, and said, "Cole, we've made a small change to the trip." The room went quiet, and I felt every pair of eyes land on me. I put my roll down slow, wiped my hands on a napkin, and looked at her. "What kind of change?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Lillian jumped in before Vivian could answer, her words spilling out fast. "I invited Jonah, just for a few days." Jonah, her ex-husband, the guy who crashed our wedding rehearsal 8 years ago, drunk as hell, yelling about how I'd stolen his girl. He'd shoved me into a table, and it took Ezra and 2 ushers to drag him out. I hadn't seen him since, but his name still made my jaw tighten. I turned to Lillian, waiting for her to meet my eyes. But she wouldn't. She just stared at her plate, crumbling that cornbread into dust. "Jonah," I said real slow, letting it sink in. "You invited Jonah to the trip I'm paying for." She nodded quick and sharp like it was no big deal. Before I could even process that, Vivian leaned forward, her smirk sharp as a knife, and added, "And Mark will join too. You know, your wife's high school sweetheart." Carrie and Beth burst into giggles like this was some hilarious sitcom moment. Mark, the guy Lillian dated for 3 years before college. The one she brought up a few too many times when we first got together, always with this little smile like she was testing me. I hadn't heard his name in years, and now he was tagging along to Bermuda. My Bermuda. I felt my pulse kick up, but I kept my face blank. Vivian wasn't done. She sipped her wine, eyeing me over the rim, and said, "Since you're not feeling the vibe, Cole, we'll just give your ticket to Mark." Ruth snorted, then covered it with a cough. Lillian still wouldn't look at me. The room spun a little. Not from wine, but from the sheer guts of what they were pulling. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and let the silence stretch. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice low but clear. "You're telling me you've invited 2 guys my wife used to sleep with to a vacation I planned and paid for, and now you're kicking me off it?" Vivian shrugged like I was being dramatic. "It's not like that, Cole. We just thought it would be fun." Fun? That word hit me like a slap. Lillian finally glanced up, her eyes wide, and said, "You're overreacting." "It's just a trip." Overreacting. I looked around the table, Vivian smirking, Ruth avoiding my gaze, Carrie and Beth whispering to each other. And I felt like I was in some twisted game I didn't sign up for. I could have yelled, I could have flipped the damn table and stormed out. But I didn't. I've always been the calm one, the guy who fixes things, not breaks them. So I just sat there letting it burn inside me and started piecing it together. This wasn't a last-minute idea. They'd planned this, talked about it behind my back, laughed about it, probably poured more wine while they figured out how to sell it to me. And Lillian, my wife, the woman I'd built my whole life around, was in on it. I thought about the trip, my money, my time, my effort. And now Jonah and Mark were waltzing in like they belonged there more than I did. I pictured Jonah's smug face, Mark's easy grin, and me what? Sitting at home while they sipped cocktails on my dime. No, that wasn't happening. I pushed my chair back, slow and deliberate, and stood up. "Cole, sit down," Vivian said, her tone sharp now, like she was scolding a kid. I ignored her. I looked at Lillian one last time, hoping she'd say something, anything to make this make sense. She didn't. She just stared at me, her mouth half open like she was surprised I wasn't rolling over like usual. "Enjoy your dinner," I said, my voice flat. I nodded once, turned, and walked out. The screen door slammed behind me, and I heard Vivian mutter something, followed by Ruth's loud, "Well, that went great. I didn't care." I got in my truck, started the engine, and sat there for a minute, hands gripping the wheel. They thought I'd come back, tail between my legs, begging to keep my spot on that trip. They were wrong. I drove home, the road blurring a little, not from tears, but from the anger boiling up. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I knew what I had to do. They wanted to play me. Fine. But I wasn't playing anymore. I walked inside, grabbed my laptop, and started typing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't lose it when I got home from that dinner at Vivian's. Not the way they probably expected me to. I could have shouted, smashed something, called Lillian, and demanded answers until my voice gave out. But that's not me. I'm not the guy who explodes. I'm the one who thinks, who plans, who waits until the right moment hits. So I walked into our house. My house, really, since I'd paid for every brick of it. dropped my keys on the counter, and stood there in the dark for a minute, letting the quiet settle over me. My chest was tight, my hands still shaky from gripping the steering wheel. But I kept my head clear. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I flipped on the kitchen light, grabbed a glass of water, and sat down at the table where Lillian and I used to eat breakfast together. Used to. Funny how fast that felt, like a lifetime ago. I replayed the dinner in my head. Vivian's smirk, Lillian's dodgeball eyes. The way they all acted like I was the crazy one for not smiling and nodding while they handed my trip to Jonah and Mark. "You're overreacting," Lillian had said. Like inviting her exes to a vacation I'd funded was just a quirky little hiccup. I set the glass down hard enough to slush water on the table and stared at it, feeling that burn in my gut grow hotter. Overreacting? No, I was reacting exactly how any sane man would. I looked at her chair, empty now, and said out loud to nobody, "You invited 2 men you slept with to a vacation I'm funding, and didn't even tell me." My voice bounced off the walls, steady but sharp, like I was testing how it sounded. It sounded right. It sounded like the truth they didn't want to hear. I stood up, paced the kitchen a few times, then stopped by the sink and looked out the window at the backyard. Dark, still, just a shadow of the swing set we put up years ago for no kids we ever had. Ezra's voice popped into my head, then that stupid clap on my shoulder at the dinner table. "Lighten up, man. You'll still be around." I were around like I was some tag-along, some extra they could shove in the corner while Jonah and Mark took center stage. I clenched my fists, then let them go. No point in getting mad at Ezra. He's a leech, always has been. It was Lillian who'd cut me deepest. My wife. The woman I'd said I do too. The one I built this life for. She didn't just go along with this. She'd helped plan it. I could feel it. I turned away from the window, walked to my office, and sat down at my desk. The laptop hummed to life, and I stared at the screen, the Bermuda itinerary still open from earlier that day. Flights, villa, boat tour, all in my name. All paid with my card, my trip, my money. And they thought they could rewrite the guest list like I was some doormat who just shrug and say, "Sure, why not?" I leaned back in my chair, ran a hand through my hair, and let out a slow breath. They'd misread me badly. I didn't yell at that dinner table because I didn't need to. Words wouldn't fix this. Action would. I leaned forward, clicked into the airline site, and canceled every single flight reservation, one by one, watching the booking canceled confirmations pop up like little victories. Then the villa gone. The boat tour done. My fingers moved fast, steady, no hesitation. I didn't feel guilty. Didn't second-guess it. This wasn't petty. This was me taking back what was mine. When it was all done, I pulled up my email, attached screenshots of every cancellation, and sent it to the whole group. Lillian, Vivian, Ruth, even Ezra, though he wasn't at dinner. Subject line: trips off. No explanation, no rant, just the facts. Let them figure it out. I sat back, watching the email whoosh away, and felt something shift inside me. Not relief yet, but a kind of quiet power. They'd think I was sulking, throwing a tantrum because my feelings got hurt. Let them. I wasn't done. I opened a new tab, searched for flights, solo flights, just for me. Lake Co, Italy popped into my head. I'd seen pictures once. Blue water, green hills, old stone towns, peaceful, the opposite of the circus I'd been living in. I found a one-way ticket leaving in 3 days. Clicked book and watched the confirmation load. No villa, no boat, just me in a suitcase. My phone buzzed. Lillian probably, or Vivian, but I ignored it. I wasn't ready to hear their excuses yet. Instead, I called Julian Prescott, my lawyer. We'd met years ago through a work buddy, and he'd handled the contract dispute for me once. He picked up on the second ring, his voice gruff but calm. "Cole, it's late. Everything okay?" I didn't waste time. "I need you to start separation proceedings against Lillian. I'm leaving the country in a few days. I'll sign whatever you need from there." He paused and then said, "You sure about this?" I looked at the flight confirmation on my screen, the canceled Bermuda mess, and nodded even though he couldn't see me. "Yeah, I'm sure." He didn't push, just said, "I'll get it rolling. Stay safe, man." We hung up and I leaned back again, the house silent except for the hum of the laptop. My phone kept buzzing 5 times, 10, a dozen texts, calls, probably the whole family losing their minds. I didn't check. I shut the phone off, set it face down on the desk, and stood up. The air felt different now. Lighter, like I'd shaken off a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. I walked to the bedroom, pulled a suitcase from the closet, started packing slowly, deliberately, just the basics. Shirts, jeans, a pair of boots. No rush. I didn't need much where I was going. I thought about Lillian's face at dinner, the way she wouldn't look at me, and wondered what she'd say when she realized I wasn't bluffing. Would she cry, yell, beg? I didn't know. And for the first time in years, I didn't care. I zipped the suitcase shut, set it by the door, and went back to my office. I opened a notebook, one I hadn't touched in forever, and started writing. Just a line at first. Tonight, I took my life back. It wasn't dramatic. It was true. I closed the book, turned off the light, and went to bed. The storm was coming. They'd make sure of that. But for now, I slept better than I had in months. 10 minutes after I hit send on that email with the cancellation screenshots, my phone lit up like a fireworks show. I turned it back on just to see how they'd react. And man, they didn't disappoint. I sat there in my office chair, the laptop still glowing with my late KO flight confirmation, and watched the chaos unfold. The group chat. Some family thread Lillian had named Archer Clan years ago exploded first. Lillian's message popped up. "Where are the bookings? Cole, what's going on? No, please. Number, are you okay?" Just straight to the point, like I misplaced her favorite shoes or something. Then Vivian chimed in. All caps. "What do you mean canceled?" I could hear her voice in my head, that shrill bark she used when she didn't get her way. Ruth, always the peacemaker until she wasn't, typed. "I told you not to you push him," and I almost laughed because it was the first honest thing I'd seen from any of them. Ezra didn't write anything, but I figured he was too busy mooching off someone else's Wi-Fi to care. My phone buzzed again, Lillian calling this time, but I let it ring. I wasn't ready to talk, not yet. I didn't owe them an explanation. They made their move at that dinner, and this was mine. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, and let the buzzing go on, a little symphony of their panic. It felt good, not cruel good, just fair. I'd spent years bending over backwards for these people, and the one time I said no, they thought they could steamroll me anyway. Not this time. I set the phone down, muted it, and turned back to my laptop. Lake Como was waiting, and I wasn't about to let their meltdown derail me. I pulled up the flight details again. Departing in 3 days, one way, no return date. I didn't need one. I'd figure that out later. The ticket was cheap enough, and I had savings money Lillian didn't even know about, tucked away in an account I'd set up years ago for emergencies. This qualified. I booked a small hotel too. Nothing fancy, just a room with a view of the lake. I pictured myself there sipping coffee on a balcony. No voices nagging in my ear. No demands pulling me 10 different ways. It wasn't revenge. It was escape. And it felt right. My phone kept vibrating on the desk, a silent tantrum I could ignore. I didn't need to read the rest of their messages to know what they'd say. Anger, guilt trips, maybe some fake tears thrown in for good measure. I'd seen it all before. Like that time Vivian borrowed $2,000 from me for her car and cried when I asked for it back. Or when Lillian swore she'd pay half the mortgage someday, then never did. I'd let it slide every time, told myself it was fine, that I could handle it. But this inviting Jonah and Mark, kicking me off my own trip, that wasn't fine. That was a line they didn't get to cross. I stood up, stretched, and walked to the kitchen to grab a beer, something I rarely did. But tonight called for it. The house was quiet. Just the hum of the fridge and the clink of the bottle against the counter. I popped the cap, took a long sip, and leaned against the sink, thinking they'd figure out soon enough that I wasn't bluffing. The trip was gone. Flights, villa, boat, all of it. And they couldn't undo that. I'd locked them out of my accounts months ago, a habit I'd picked up after Vivian tried using my credit card for business expenses without asking. They had no leverage now, no way to guilt me back into line. I took another sip and smiled a little, picturing their faces when they realized it. My phone buzzed again, probably 15 calls by now, but I left it in the office. I didn't need the noise. Instead, I opened my email and wrote to Julian, my lawyer. Initiate separation proceedings. I typed, I'll be out of the country soon. Send me whatever I need to sign digitally. I hit send, no hesitation. Julian would handle it. He was good like that. No nonsense, just results. I'd known him long enough to trust he'd keep this clean and quiet, at least on my end. Lillian could scream all she wanted. The law didn't care about her feelings. I finished the beer, tossed the bottle in the recycling, and went back to my office. My phone was a mess of notifications, missed calls from Lillian, Vivian, even Ruth, plus a dozen texts I didn't bother opening. I turned it off completely this time, slid it into a drawer, and shut the laptop. The house felt bigger without their voices bouncing around in my head, like I could finally hear myself think. I walked to the bedroom, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the edge of the bed. Our bed, though it hadn't felt like that in a while. Lillian's side was still messy, a tangle of sheets and a pillow she'd hugged more than me lately. I didn't touch it. Let her deal with it when she came back, if she came back. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, and let my mind drift to Como. I'd never been to Italy, never even left the States much. But it called to me now. I imagined the water, the mountains, the kind of quiet that didn't come with strings attached. I'd be gone before they could corner me, before they could twist this into something I'd feel bad about. They'd try. I knew that. Vivian with her lectures, Lillian with her tears. But I'd be halfway across the world, out of reach. I rolled over, grabbed my notebook from the nightstand, and wrote another line. They thought they'd win. They didn't. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I closed the book, turned off the lamp, and lay there in the dark, listening to the house settle. My phone stayed off, their messages piling up in silence. I didn't care. I'd said what I needed to with those cancellations, with that flight to Como, with that email to Julian. They'd get the message soon enough. Not the one they wanted, but the one they deserved. I closed my eyes, the beer settling warm in my stomach, and let myself relax. The storm was theirs now, not mine. I'd be on a plane in 3 days, and whatever they threw at me between now and then, I'd handle it. I always did, but this time it'd be on my terms, not theirs. Sleep came easy, and for once, I didn't dream of Lillian's voice or Vivian's smirk. Just water, blue and endless, stretching out ahead of me. 3 days after I canceled the Bermuda trip and booked my flight to Lake Co, I was gone. I didn't stick around to watch the fallout in person. Didn't need to. I'd packed my suitcase, locked up the house, and driven myself to the airport with the radio off. Just me and the hum of the engine. The flight was long, but I didn't mind. Every mile between me and them felt like a knot loosening in my chest. I landed in Italy, took a shuttle to my little hotel by the lake, and settled in with nothing but a backpack and a clean slate. I didn't check my phone for a while. Kept it off, actually, because I wasn't ready to deal with whatever mess they'd left behind. But a week later, I got curious. I turned it on, connected to the hotel's Wi-Fi, and let the notifications roll in. That's when I heard what happened at the airport back home. Pieced together from texts, voicemails, and a few gleeful DMs from people who weren't on Lillian's side anymore. They'd shown up that weekend, the whole crew ready for paradise. I could see it in my head clear as day. Vivian in one of her loud floral dresses, barking at Ezra to carry her bags. Lillian fussing with her hair. Maybe even Jonah and Mark strutting around like they owned the place. They'd gone all out. I heard matching family t-shirts, the kind with some cheesy slogan like Archer Bermuda Bash printed across the chest. I bet Lillian designed them, thinking it would make for cute photos. They rolled up to the check-in counter, all swagger and sunscreen, only to find out there were no tickets, no reservations, nothing waiting for them. The gate agent must have looked at them like they were nuts, tapping away at her computer, saying, "I'm sorry, ma'am. There's no record of your booking." Vivian, I'm told, turned pale as a ghost, her mouth flapping open and shut like a fish out of water. She probably demanded to speak to a manager, waving her arms while Lillian started crying right there in front of everyone, mascara streaking down her face. Jonah, good old Jonah, lost his temper and baggage claim, cursing loud enough to turn heads, kicking at his suitcase like it was the bag's fault. Mark, from what I heard, just shrugged, said, "Well, this sucks," and walked off to the parking lot without a backward glance. Ruth tried to calm them down, but Ezra's girlfriend Belle later told me it was a total circus. People staring, kids pointing, the whole family unraveling right there in the terminal. I sat on my hotel balcony, a tiny thing overlooking Lake Como, sipping espresso from a chipped mug, and pictured every second of it. The water stretched out in front of me, blue and calm. Little boats bobbing along like they didn't have a care in the world. I didn't laugh out loud, but I felt light, lighter than I had in years. They built this big, shiny plan on my back, and when I pulled out, it crashed down hard. I didn't feel bad, not even a little. They'd earned it. I took another sip, the coffee bitter and strong, and leaned back in the wobbly metal chair. The air smelled clean like pine and water, nothing like the heavy humidity back home. I'd been in Como a few days by then, wandering the narrow streets, eating pasta at hole-in-the-wall spots, letting the sun warm my face without anyone telling me what to do next. It was the first time in forever I wasn't running someone else's errands or paying someone else's bills. I'd left them with nothing. No flights, no villa, no yacht. And it felt like I'd finally taken something for myself. Belle's DM popped up while I was scrolling. You should have seen their faces. Cole, total meltdown. Wish I'd recorded it. She'd attached a blurry photo. Vivian yelling at a counter agent. Lillian slumped in a chair, head in her hands. I zoomed in, studied it for a minute, then closed it. I didn't need the proof. I could imagine it fine. I wrote back, "Thanks for the update. Glad I missed it," and left it at that. She'd been texting me bits and pieces since I left. Nothing pushy, just little updates. I liked her. She'd never bought into the family's nonsense, even if Ezra did. I set the phone down, picked up my notebook, and started writing again. I've been doing that a lot, jotting down thoughts, moments, stuff I didn't want to forget. Day 5 in Como, I wrote. They fell apart without me. I didn't. Simple but true. I closed the book and stood up, stretching my arms over my head. The lake glittered under the afternoon sun, and I decided to walk down to it. Maybe dip my feet in. I grabbed my shoes, locked the room, and headed out. The cobblestone path cool under my soles. I wasn't lonely. Not like I thought I'd be. Back home, I'd always been surrounded, but it was a crowd that drained me, not filled me up. Here, alone, I was starting to feel alive. I passed an old guy fishing off a dock, nodded at him, and he nodded back. No words needed. I kept going, found a quiet spot by the water, and sat down on a smooth rock. The lake lapped at the shore, soft and steady, and I let my mind wander. I wondered what Lillian said to the gate agent. Probably some sob story about her mean husband ruining everything. I wondered if Vivian tried to bribe someone, flashing that fake charm she thought worked on everyone. I wondered if Jonah punched a wall when he got home, or if Mark just laughed it off like he didn't care either way. Didn't matter. They weren't my problem anymore. I kicked off my shoes, rolled up my jeans, and stuck my feet in the water. Cold, sharp, waking me up. I stayed there a while, watching the sun dip lower, the sky turning pink and gold. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail, probably Vivian this time. But I didn't check it. I didn't need to hear her voice to know she'd blame me. Call me selfish, say I'd ruined their fun. Let her. I wasn't going back to fix it. I pulled my feet out, shook them dry, and stood up. The walk back to the hotel was slow, easy, my shadows stretching long on the path. I'd started living, really living, and they couldn't touch that. Not here. Not anymore. I'd been in Lake Como for about 2 weeks when I finally logged into social media again. Not because I missed it, but because I wanted to see how they were spinning the mess I'd left behind. I'd kept my phone off most of the time, letting the quiet of Italy soak into me. But curiosity got the better of me. One morning, I was sitting at a small cafe near the lake, a plate of warm bread and a coffee in front of me, the water sparkling under a clear sky. I pulled out my phone, connected to the cafe's Wi-Fi, and opened the app one hadn't touched since before the dinner ambush. The first thing I saw was Lillian's post pinned at the top of her profile like a billboard. "My husband abandoned us," she wrote. "We made one harmless change to a trip and he lost it. Canceled everything and left us stranded. I'm heartbroken." I read it twice, letting the words sink in, and took a slow sip of coffee. Heartbroken, that's what she was going with. I scrolled down, and there was Vivian right on cue commenting under it. "He's unstable, that's what he is." Poor Lillian, stuck with a man who'd rather run than talk. I set the cup down and leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Unstable, abandoned, harmless change. They turned it into a soap opera, and I was the villain, some unhinged guy who flipped out over nothing and ditched his family. I could have been mad. Could have typed up a big rant right there to set the record straight, but I didn't. I just kept scrolling, watching their story unfold. A few of Lillian's friends had chimed in. Carrie with a sad emoji, Beth with a "you deserve better" girl, and some random cousins I barely knew had liked it. It was a performance. all of it polished up to make them look like victims and me like the bad guy. I pictured Lillian typing it out, maybe sniffling for effect, Vivian nodding over her shoulder. Both of them sure this would win them the crowd. I shook my head, almost impressed by how fast they'd flipped the script. Almost. I took a bite of bread, chewed slow, and thought about what they weren't saying. How they'd invited Jonah and Mark, how they tried to kick me off my own trip, how they'd planned it behind my back. None of that made it to their little online pity party. I was about to close the app when a message popped up. Not from them, but from Belle, Ezra's girlfriend. "Hey Cole," she wrote. They crossed the line with this one. "If you need receipts, I've got screenshots. They're full of it." I paused, my thumb hovering over the screen. Receipts. I typed back, "What kind of receipts?" and waited. She didn't take long. A minute later, my phone pinged with a string of images, group chat logs, text threads, even a photo of a hotel receipt. I opened the first one, a chat between Lillian and Jonah from 3 months ago. "Miss you," she'd written. "Dinner soon." His reply, "You know I'm there." Cole won't mind. Her answer, "He never does." I stared at that for a long time. The bread forgotten on my plate, 3 months. Not a spur-of-the-moment invite for Bermuda. This had been going on for a while. I swiped to the next screenshot. Lillian and Vivian plotting. Joan is in. Vivian wrote, "Mark 2. Cole will get over it." Lillian, "He'll pay for it either way." I felt my stomach twist. Not from hunger, but from the cold. Hard truth of it. They've been scheming this for months. Secret dinners with Jonah, sneaky hotel meetups, even a burner phone she'd shared with him, according to Belle's notes. I opened the hotel receipt, some cheap place an hour from our house, booked under her name, paid with cash. Then the kicker, a text from Lillian to Mark, sent weeks before the dinner with my Bermuda itinerary attached. "Pick whatever excursions you want," she'd written. Cole's got it covered. Mark's reply, "Sweet. Let's make it fun." Fun? There was that word again. The same one Vivian threw at me when she announced they were giving my ticket away. I set the phone down, leaned my elbows on the table, and rubbed my face with both hands. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a production, a whole play they'd rehearsed while I was busy working, paying bills, thinking we were a team. I looked out at the lake, the water so still it mirrored the mountains, and felt my jaw tighten. They counted on me being the same old Cole, quiet, steady, the guy who'd grumble but never push back. They'd miscalculated. I picked up the phone again, wrote to Belle, "Thanks. This helps a lot. Keep me posted if anything else comes up." She replied, "Quick. Will do. You're better off without them." I didn't answer that. Just closed the app, finished my coffee, and paid the bill. The waiter smiled, said something in Italian I didn't catch, and I nodded back, distracted. I stepped outside, the air cool against my skin, and started walking along the lake path. The screenshots burned in my mind. Every word, every date, every lie piling up like bricks. Lillian hadn't just reconnected with Jonah. She'd been sneaking around with him, plotting with her mom, roping in Mark like it was some twisted reunion tour. And me? I was the wallet, the fool who'd foot the bill while they laughed behind my back. I kicked a pebble into the water, watched it sink, and kept walking. Not everyone bought their soba story, though. Belle didn't, and a few others had messaged me, too. Old work buddies, a cousin of mine from out west, saying they saw through the posts. "Doesn't add up," my cousin wrote. "Lillian's full of crap." It wasn't much, but it was enough to know I wasn't crazy. I stopped by a bench, sat down, and pulled out my notebook. "They're spinning it hard," I wrote. "But the truth's louder. I've got proof now." I closed it, leaned back, and watched a boat drift by. An old guy rowing slow and steady. I wasn't going to post anything. Wasn't going to fight them online. That wasn't my style. I'd let Julian handle it. Those screenshots would look real nice in court. For now, I was here breathing clean air, free of their noise. The spin didn't matter. The facts did. And I had them. I woke up early one morning in Lake Co., the kind of early where the sky's still gray and the birds haven't started chirping yet. My hotel room was small, just a bed, a desk, and a window that opened to the lake. But it felt like enough. I'd been there almost a month now, settling into a rhythm. Coffee by the water, long walks through the town, a little work when I felt like it. That morning, though, I had something else on my mind. Julian, my lawyer, had emailed me the night before, saying the divorce papers were ready to serve. I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone in one hand, and read his message again. Everything's set. "Cole, I've got documentation on Lillian's emotional abuse, her slander online, and some financial misconduct we dug up. Vivian's in it too. Used your business account for personal purchases. We're ready to move. Just say the word." I set the phone down and stared out the window. The lake barely visible through the dawn haze. Emotional abuse, slander, financial misconduct. Those words hit hard, not because they surprised me, but because they made it real. I'd known Lillian and her family were messy, but seeing it laid out like that, clean and legal, felt like a punch I wasn't ready for. I stood up, splashed water on my face, and got dressed. Jeans, a sweater, nothing fancy. I needed air. Needed to think. So I grabbed my notebook and headed to my usual cafe. The one with the wobbly tables and the old guy who always smiled when I ordered my espresso. I sat outside, the air cool against my skin, and opened Julian's email again. He detached a draft of the papers, and I skimmed them, my coffee going cold. There it was. Everything I'd been through boiled down to bullet points. Lillian's secret meetings with Jonah, her texts to Mark, the way she'd painted me as the bad guy online. Julian had even found proof of her spending my money on things she never told me about. Clothes, trips, even a deposit for a car she claimed was a gift from her mom. And Vivian, she'd been dipping into my business account for years, charging consulting fees for a company that didn't exist. I leaned back in my chair, watching a couple of early risers stroll by with their docs. I wasn't shocked, not really, but it still stung. I trusted them, Lillian most of all, and they'd played me like I was nothing but a bank account with legs. I typed back to Julian, "Go ahead and serve them. Send me anything I need to sign." I hit send, took a sip of coffee, and felt a weight lift just a little. This wasn't about revenge. It was about closing a door they'd kept kicking open. I'd already moved most of our marital assets, mine legally, into a separate trust months ago. Back when I first caught Vivian messing with my accounts, the house, the savings, even the villa Lillian loved showing off to her friends. It was all out of her reach now. Her car leased in my name, and I'd already told the dealership to repossess it. I didn't gloat about it, didn't need to. It was just business, same as they treated me. I finished my coffee, paid the bill, and started walking along the lake path. My notebook tucked under my arm. The water was calm, reflecting the mountains like a painting, and I let my mind wander. I thought about Lillian opening those papers, her face going pale when she saw the evidence, texts, receipts, bank statements. She'd probably cry, call her mom, maybe try to post another sob story online. But it wouldn't work this time. Julian was thorough, and the truth was on my side. Vivian would lose it, I bet. Scream about family and loyalty while ignoring her own scams. I kicked a pebble into the water and kept going, the crunch of gravel under my shoes steadying me. I wasn't worried about them fighting back. They didn't have the money or the brains to outsmart Julian. Lillian's posts had already started losing traction. I checked last night, and half the comments were calling her out, asking why she'd invited her exes on my trip. People weren't as dumb as she thought. I stopped by a bench, sat down, and opened my notebook. "Paper served today," I wrote. "They'll try to spin it, but it's over. I'm done carrying their weight." I closed the book and looked out at the lake, a boat drifting slow in the distance. I wondered what they'd say when the news hit. Lillian, Vivian, maybe even Ezra, though he'd probably just shrug and mooch off someone else. I didn't care much. They'd made their bed, and I wasn't tucking them in anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Belle. "Heard the papers are coming. Good for you." Lillian's been whining to anyone who will listen. I smiled, typed back, "Thanks for the heads up," and left it at that. Belle had been a lifeline, feeding me bits of truth when I needed it most. I stood up, stretched, and kept walking, the path curving toward the town square. I passed a market setting up, old ladies selling cheese, kids chasing each other around crates, and felt a pang of something I couldn't name. Not sadness, not regret, but relief maybe mixed with a little ache for what could have been. I loved Lillian once. Loved her laugh, her fire, the way she'd make me feel like I could do anything. But that was a long time ago, before the lies, before the games. Now I was here starting over, and she was back there stuck in her own mess. I circled back to the hotel, the sun higher now, warming my face. Julian would handle the rest, file the papers, freeze their access, make sure they couldn't touch what was mine. I didn't need to fight. I just needed to keep moving forward. I climbed the stairs to my room, tossed my notebook on the desk, and stood by the window, watching the lake shimmer. They'd be loud for a while. I knew Vivian's rants, Lillian's tears, but it wouldn't change anything. I'd cut the threads they tied me up with, and for the first time in years, I was free. Not angry, not bitter, just done. I grabbed a bottle of water from the mini fridge, took a long drink, and sat down to work. A small coding job for a local guy. Nothing big. It felt good, normal, like I was building something new. The fight was theirs now, not mine. The divorce papers hit them like a break through a window, and I didn't need to be there to know it. I was still in Lake Como, a month and a half into my new life, when the reaction started trickling in. I've been keeping my phone on low, checking it once a day or so, just enough to stay connected without drowning in their noise. That morning, I was out on my balcony. The lake spread out below me like a postcard, a half-eaten croissant on the table next to my coffee. The air was crisp, the kind that wakes you up without trying. And I was feeling good, really good, until I saw the voicemail count. 7 from Vivian, all left in the last 12 hours. I didn't listen right away. I knew what I'd get, yelling, guilt trips, maybe some crocodile tears if she was feeling creative. I scrolled through my texts instead. Found one from Belle. Papers landed yesterday. Vivian's losing her mind. Lillian's playing the victim again. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled a little. Typed back. Thanks. Let me know if it gets wild and set the phone down. Wild was an understatement. I'd find out later, but for now, I wanted to hear it straight from the source. I picked up the phone again, took a deep breath, and played the first voicemail. Vivian's voice came through sharp and loud, like she was standing right next to me. "Cole, this is ridiculous. Divorce papers. You're tearing this family apart over a stupid trip. Call me back right now." Click. I deleted it. Moved to the next. Same tone, angrier. "You think you can just walk away like this? We're not done, mister. I'll fight this." Click. By the third one, she was rambling about lawyers and what people will think. And by the seventh, her voice cracked. "This isn't how family works, Cole. You're destroying everything." I sat there staring at the lakeys and let that sink in. Destroying everything. Funny how she saw it that way. Me, the guy who'd paid their bills, fixed their messes, and taken their crap for years, was the one wrecking it all because I finally said no. I deleted the rest without listening and leaned back in my chair, the croissant going stale in the cool air. Family. That word used to mean something to me, but now it just sounded like a leash they kept yanking. My phone buzzed again. An email this time from Lillian. I opened it, expecting more of her social media sob story, but it was short. "Cole, can we just talk, please?" No apology, no explanation, just that. I read it twice, my thumb hovering over the reply button, then closed it. Talk? What was there to say? She'd had months, years really, to talk. And instead she'd picked Jonah, Mark, and a stack of lies over me. I wasn't running back to fix her feelings. I set the phone face down and finished my coffee, the bitter taste grounding me. They could scream all they wanted. I wasn't budging. Later that day, Belle sent more. She'd been my eyes back home, and I owed her for it. "Vivian's telling everyone you've lost it," she wrote. "Lillian's moping around, saying she never meant to hurt you. Ezra tried to call you out, said he'd deal with you if you ever came back. Julian shut him down with a cease and desist letter. It's a mess." I laughed out loud at that. Sitting on a bench by the water, Ezra dealing with me. The guy couldn't deal with a bar tab. I pictured him puffing up his chest, all talk until Julian's letter landed and scared him. Quiet. "Good," I texted Belle back. "Appreciate it. Sounds like they're digging their own hole." She sent a thumbs up and a photo group chat screenshots where Lillian wed about losing everything and Vivian plotted to fix this. Belle had even signed an affidavit for Julian, swearing to what she'd seen, the secret talks, the plans to humiliate me, all of it. I took my phone away and kept walking. The lake path winding through trees starting to turn gold with fall. Their regrets didn't move me. Not Vivian's voicemails, not Lillian's email, not Ezra's empty threats. They weren't sorry they'd hurt me. They were sorry they'd lost their meal ticket. I kicked a pine cone down the path and thought about how quiet they'd gotten online lately. No more big posts, no more poor me updates, just silence like they knew the game was up. I didn't check to confirm. I didn't need to. I was done with their stage. I turned my focus back to me. Swimming in the lake most mornings, the water cold and clear, waking me up in a way coffee never could. I'd started reading too, picking up paperbacks from a little shop in town. Old mysteries, nothing heavy, just stories to lose myself in. I even signed up for Italian lessons with a guy named Marco, a retired teacher who laughed at my accent, but kept me going. "Piano, piano," he'd say. "Slowly, slowly." And I liked that. No rush, no pressure. I'd hiked 2 up through the olive groves above Como, the air smelling like earth and leaves. My legs burning by the end, but my head clear. I stopped by the water again, sat on a rock, and pulled out my notebook. "They're yelling," I wrote. "I'm not listening. This is my time now." I closed it, leaned back, and watched the sun dip lower, painting the leg orange. Vivian could leave 100 voicemails. Lillian could beg all she wanted. It didn't change the papers, the trust, the life I was building. I stood up, brushed off my jeans, and headed back to the hotel, the path familiar under my feet. My phone stayed quiet the rest of the day, and I liked it that way. I cooked a simple dinner, pasta, some sauce from a jar, a glass of cheap wine, and ate on the balcony, the night settling in, soft and cool. They'd regret it eventually, maybe even mean it someday. But I wasn't waiting around for that. I'd spent too long fixing their mistakes. Now I was fixing me, swimming, reading, learning, walking, and it felt better than anything they'd ever given me. I finished the wine, set the glass down, and went to bed. The lake whispering outside. Their mess was theirs. I was free. Months slipped by in Lake Como, and I barely noticed the time passing until one day I looked at the calendar and realized it had been almost 6 months since I'd left home. The divorce finalized quietly. No big courtroom drama, no shouting. Matches. Just a stack of papers signed and emailed to Julian from my little hotel desk. I didn't celebrate when he sent the confirmation, didn't pop champagne or call anyone to gloat. I just sat there staring at the lake through my window and felt a kind of peace settle over me. Not loud or flashy, but steady like the water outside. Lillian was gone from my life legally now, and her family with her. And I didn't need to rub it in. I'd won by walking away, not by fighting. I've been building something new out here, piece by piece, and it was starting to feel like mine. I'd moved out of the hotel a couple months back, renting a small apartment in Milan instead. A one-bedroom place with a balcony, old wooden floors, and a view of a quiet street where kids played soccer until dark. It wasn't fancy, but it was enough. And I liked the hum of the city outside, different from Co's stillness. I bought it outright with some of the trust money, a clean break from the house back home. I'd let Lillian keep in the settlement. I didn't want it anymore. Too many memories, too much of their noise baked into the walls. Here, I could start fresh. I'd been working freelance too, picking up coding jobs for European clients. Small stuff, mostly websites and apps. Nothing that tied me down. It kept money coming in, kept my mind sharp, and let me set my own hours. I'd sit at my kitchen table, laptop open, a coffee going cold beside me, and lose myself in the work. The kind of focus I hadn't had in years. Back home, I'd always been interrupted. Lillian needing something, Vivian calling, Ezra dropping by unannounced. Now, it was just me, and I liked it that way. I wasn't hiding, though. I'd started going out, meeting people, letting life happen. I'd met Isidora at a market one Sunday, a local artist with dark eyes and a laugh that made me forget what I was saying mid-sentence. She sold paintings, bright, messy things full of color, and we got into talking when I stopped to look at one. "You're not from here," she'd said. Not a question, just a fact. And I'd nodded, told her I was American, starting over. She didn't pry, just smiled, and asked if I'd ever tried painting. I hadn't, but I said yes anyway. And that turned into coffee, then dinner, then a few more dates. She wasn't Lillian, not even close. Isadora didn't lean on me, didn't expect me to fix her world. She just was. And that felt healthy, like a breath I didn't know I needed. We'd walk through Milan together, or pointing out old buildings, me stumbling over Italian phrases I'd picked up from Marco's lessons. And it was easy. No pressure. I didn't jump into anything serious too soon for that. But it was nice, casual. A reminder I could still feel something good. One afternoon, I logged back into social media. First time in weeks, just to see what was left of them. I'd unfollowed Lillian and her crew after the papers hit. But curiosity pulled me back. Her profile was public still, and there it was, a photo of her in Vivian's living room. Boxes stacked around her, captioned, "New beginnings are hard, but I'm trying." I scrolled the comments. Mostly pity from her friends, a few stay strong posts. But it was quieter than before, like the world had moved on. Vivian's page was the same, just a rant about ungrateful people that didn't name me, but didn't have to. Mark was gone. No trace of him anywhere. Probably off chasing someone else's wallet. Jonah, though, Belle had texted me about him a while back. Got arrested for fraud, some scam he'd been running on the side. I wasn't surprised. He'd always had that sleazy edge. The trip that wasn't had fractured them all, left them scattered while I'd landed on my feet. I closed the app, leaned back in my chair, and looked out at the street below. Kids were kicking a ball against a wall, laughing, and I felt steady. I didn't need to post about my new life, didn't need to shove it in their faces. I was living it. That was enough. I've been hiking more lately, taking trains out to the countryside, walking trails through hills dotted with olive trees and little villages. I'd swim when I could, finding lakes or pools, the water cold and sharp against my skin. I kept up the Italian lessons too, getting better enough to order food or chat with shopkeepers without sounding like a total idiot. Marco would clap me on the back, say, "Ben, Cole, Ben," and I'd grin, feeling like a kid who'd aced a test. I read a lot books I grabbed from secondhand shops, mostly stories about people starting over, which hit close, but not too close. It was a life I'd built without them, and it fit me better than the old one ever had. I thought about Lillian sometimes, not with anger, just a kind of distant wonder how she'd gone from the woman I'd loved to someone I didn't recognize. I didn't hate her, didn't hate any of them really. They'd made their choices, and I'd made mine. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and headed out to meet Isadora for coffee. She texted earlier saying she'd found a new spot near the cathedral, and I was game. The walk was quick, the air turning cool with fall, and I found her at a table outside sketching on a napkin. "You're late?" she teased. And I laughed, sat down, ordered an espresso. We talked about nothing big, her art, my coding, the weather, and it was perfect. I didn't need more than that. Back home, they were stuck, fractured, picking up pieces I'd stopped carrying. Here, I was whole, building something real, and it was mine. One morning in Milan, about 8 months after I'd left everything behind, I woke up to a letter slipped under my apartment door. It wasn't fancy, no official stamp, no lawyer's logo, just a plain envelope with my name scratched across it in Lillian's handwriting. I stood there in my boxers, coffee pot gurgling in the kitchen behind me, and stared at it on the floor, like it might bite. I hadn't heard from her directly in months, not since that email begging to talk, which I'd ignored, and I wasn't sure I wanted to now. The air smelled like espresso, and the bread I'd left on the counter and outside the street was waking up with the clatter of bikes and voices. I picked up the letter, turned it over in my hands, and felt a flicker of something. Not anger, not curiosity, just a kind of tired wondering. I poured my coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened it slow, like I was peeling back a bandage. Inside was a single page, her words neat but shaky. "Cole, I know you don't owe me anything, but I need to say this. You were right. I was cruel. I got caught up in stupid games with Mom and Jonah and Mark, and I didn't see what it did to you. You didn't deserve any of it. I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, here's my number." She'd scribbled it at the bottom, same old number I deleted from my phone a lifetime ago. I read it twice, then folded it up and set it on the table next to my mock. The coffee steamed in the quiet, and I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Sorry. After all that, the dinners with Jonah, the text to Mark, the way she'd let her family shove me out of my own life. She was sorry. I didn't feel a rush of anything. No relief, no bitterness. Just a flat kind of calm. I'd spent years waiting for her to see me. Really see me. And now that she had, it didn't change a thing. I wasn't that guy anymore. The one who'd run back to fix her tears. I stood up, walked to the sink, and looked out at the street below. Kids chasing a dog, an old lady carrying a basket of flowers. I thought about calling her just for a second, imagining her voice on the line, soft and pleading. But what would I say? It's okay. It wasn't. I forgive you. I didn't. Not fully. Not yet. I didn't hate her. Didn't wish her harm. But forgiveness wasn't mine to give anymore. I'd moved on, and she was still back there, stuck in the wreckage she'd helped build. I took the letter, folded it again, and slid it into a drawer with some old receipts and a spare key, out of sight. Not thrown away, but not something I'd keep staring at it either. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, and got dressed. Jeans, a sweater, my boots scuffed from hiking. I had a job to finish today, a website for a local cafe owner. And then I was meeting Isadora for lunch. That was my life now. Work I liked, people I chose, a rhythm that fit me. I grabbed my laptop bag, locked the door, and stepped out into the Milan morning, the air cool and sharp against my face. The letter stayed in my head as I walked. Not heavy, just there like a stone in my pocket. I wondered how she'd gotten my address. Belle, maybe, or Julian. But it didn't matter. She'd reached out, said her piece, and I didn't owe her a reply. I bought the tickets for that Bermuda trip, paid for every detail, and when they tried to take it from me, I'd canned it all. It wasn't just about the money. It was about me, about saying no for once and meaning it. I turned a corner, passed a guy playing guitar for coins, and kept going. The city buzzing around me. Lillian's apology didn't pull me back. It just closed a chapter I'd already finished writing. I got to the cafe where I like to work, ordered another espresso, and set up my laptop by the window. The owner waved, called me Senior Cole with a grin, and I nodded back, feeling at home. I opened my code, started typing, and let the world fade. Lines of logic, clean and simple, no drama, no lies. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A text from Isadora. Lunch at noon, new place by the park. I smiled, wrote back, "See you there," and kept working. That was my day. Quiet, mine, no one else's. I thought about the old me. Sometimes the Cole who'd nod and pay and let them walk all over him. He was gone. Not dead. Just done. I'd taken that one-way ticket to Co., turned it into a life in Milan, and it was the best decision I'd ever made. I finished the job, sent it off, and headed to meet Isadora. The sun high now, warming the streets. She was waiting by a fountain, sketching on a pad, and waved when she saw me. "You look happy," she said. And I shrugged, said I am. We ate sandwiches on a bench, talked about her next painting, my next hike. Nothing deep, just easy. Back home, they'd fallen apart. Lillian with her mom, Jonah in jail, Vivian ranting to an empty audience. But I didn't need to watch it. I'd heard enough from Belle over the months. The family fractured. The trip a memory they couldn't rewrite. My story didn't end with a big showdown or a tearful reunion. It ended here, quiet with me walking back to my apartment after lunch. The letter in the drawer where I'd left it. I didn't burn it, didn't frame it. Just let it be. My name is Cole Archer, and I bought the tickets. I canceled them. I walked away, and now I'm free. Not loud about it, not showy, just living. I got home, kicked off my boots,